Hello, everybody. Good evening or good afternoon, depends on where you are. My name is Jairo Lopez, and I'll be mediating a panel today with my friends Lucas and Rodrigo. I've been working in games for about, I think, 4 years in business development. I've worked on the development side. Now I work on the services side of the industry with localization and QA. I also host a podcast with some industry friends about the business of video games. It's all in Portuguese, but the name is Abrindo o Jogo. You can find it in any aggregator podcast you like. I'll let the guys introduce themselves. Please, Lucas, can you start?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Lucas. I've been working in the gaming industry for about 4 years as well. I've been organizing a few events in the past. I've been writing for some games as well in my narrative design past. And right now I'm working as a business developer for Hermit Crab. We'll get into that a little bit later. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me and having me. I'll be glad to share a little bit of my knowledge with you guys.
Thank you.
This is Rodrigo here. Well, first of all, let me apologize in advance because my son is in the background, and sooner or later you're gonna hear him speaking something, or maybe the TV will turn him down. But yeah, I've been in the games industry for almost 3 years now. I've been working with Bemobi, where I'm the head of partnerships and third-party products. One of our most important products is Apps Club, basically the service that for which I have been invited today. And we are distributing third-party content, very famous brands and partners across our stores all over the world. We're going to talk about it a little bit later too. And as Lucas said, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Great. Okay, so we can start. Just to give some context, and before we jump into the conversations we have, we've prepared something very cool for you guys. But I wanted to give some context before we kick off. This is not a very traditional panel on publishing. Because of the guests we have, the experience we have in the industry. Bemobi is a mobile publisher that works in alternative channels to Google Play and App Store. I'll let Rodrigo talk about that later. But we will focus a little bit on Bemobi's approach to gaming, but also we'll give an overview of the industry, of how publishing works in general, and more importantly, our experience working with publishers and publishing games across multiple platforms. I also want to let Lucas speak a little bit about how he approaches publishers on his day-to-day, and then we have another few things to talk about before we get into the actual discussion. So Lucas, can you give us an overview of what has worked and what hasn't worked for you when approaching publishers?
Absolutely. So as Jairo said, we are going to talk a little bit more about another side of the publishing aspect. But most of you guys who are watching will be watching this later on. You may be facing some kind of conventional publishing deals before actually getting into where we are right now. But for what I have as an experience in talking to publishers and some other companies in this side of the business, well, you guys probably saw the Powell Group talk before ours. They talk they had some really nice content in how you can make a good pitch and how you can the best way to approach someone. So what I would like to say, not to repeat what the other panelists said, it's basically when you have the need to talk to a publisher, you always need to be sure you're not overselling or selling something that you're not sure of what you have. So some cases where I have some fellow developers and friends that they try to sell something that they didn't have or they weren't capable of doing. So that's a big no, like a major issue that you must always avoid, because later on, if this deal goes on and the publishers start to asking what the hell is the product that you promised and you don't have anything to show, it's not just one contact that will be burning. It's like a whole network that you'll be about to lose. So I think the first thing that you need to be sure is you have confidence on what you're presenting to someone, and that what you're about to show, it's something that you'll be willing to continue with or without the help of other people for your future team, or I don't know, if you're doing it alone, that's not a problem at all. So I think in a more broad perspective, having a clear pitch, a clear idea of what you want to present, and of course, you be sure that you're doing something that you actually want to do, and not because you saw in an article that this type of game is doing so well and selling really good, and you think, oh well, maybe I just should develop something like that, and you end up developing something that you hate. So unless you're like working for someone else and you just really need the money, don't do that to yourself. Try to try to follow at least something that you really like and really enjoy doing. But yeah, I mean, use events as much as possible. Right now, there's a lot of online opportunities that you should always take a look at. Tickets are way more accessible right now during this pandemic. If there's one thing that's positive in this outcome, is that people are managed to go to way more events than in the past. So make sure to use all those events. Make sure to have a nice presentation, and always make sure that you can explain clearly what you're imagining and what you're aiming to sell. People don't know what you're talking about, so don't take that for granted. Don't think that people will just they just know, they just figure it out. They won't. So yeah, be sure to make a clear statement of what you have and what you can do. But yeah, I think
I think I think that's the best advice people can give to developers that are starting, or even considering to look for publishers. I think you said everything that is more important. I think one of the things that I've learned and I keep bringing with me is that I think it's more about do under promise and over deliver, rather than over promise and under deliver. And I think also, so a lot of people have questions on how do I actually start a conversation with the publisher, and how do I how do I take it from there. I think one of the main things, just quickly before we get into the actual topic tonight, is have a pitch deck with the main information about your game. Just basically, what's the game about? How are you going to make money? That's important, because after all, we like working in games. We all like the money more than working in games, I guess. But also, basic information, and what have you done and what are you trying to accomplish there? Because I think once you're transparent enough with the publisher, they will be transparent with you. I hope, or in most cases at least. And it's like a marriage. It's you be transparent and sincere to one another, and I think there's big chances of that working well. I think also there is different types of deals, different types of publishers. So always do your homework before talking to anyone. What their publisher, what the kind of games they've published before, what kind of games they're trying to get into now, platforms, and what they've done in the past. And also, I think if you're unsure about a publisher, there's always a developer that has published a game with them in the past that is willing to speak about his or her experience. And usually people in the games industry are pretty open about if a publisher was nice, or if working with a publisher was nice or not. So that's another thing developers can leverage. But I think we'll get through the more business side of working with a publisher later on as well. We have tonight here one of the largest publishers in the telco space, and I want to also make sure that we make the most of the conversation with Rodrigo. So, Rodrigo, I know you guys. We've worked before. Well, worked together in the past. With a pretty successful case, and also, I know you guys have been pretty successful in growing over the years. So do you want to talk a little bit about what is Bemobi, the Apps Club, and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Bemobi is probably an unknown name to most of you guys out there. We are a B2B2C company, so we take our product to the end consumer through another company, right, or through other companies in this case, and we partner with mobile carriers around the world, right. We operate in emerging markets only. And there's a reason for that, which I'm about to explain. And that is basically because of the fact that monetizing content in those places is extremely hard, right? So if you take a look at the charts for top downloads in terms of countries, and then you take a look at monetization, top countries for that too, you'll see that on top downloads, you have a lot of emerging markets, a lot of emerging countries. And when you go to monetization, you see a lot of developed countries, United States, Japan, South Korea, and so on. And there's a big gap between those two lists, right? There's a lot of people downloading and wanting to play games in these emerging markets. You have very large countries in terms of population, but they're not making a lot of money there, right? And there are a few reasons for that. There are a few different reasons for that. A few that I can mention here, for example, is the lack of payment methods. We don't have credit cards in those places, right? Or bank accounts. They have very poor data packages, for example, or internet is not very stable, very reliable. Or content is not well localized, both in terms of culture and language, and also pricing, right? I mean, if you take a super well-known game developed for, I don't know, Western Europe, and you take it to Pakistan or Brazil or some of those countries, people don't have the same amount of money to spend with entertainment, right? So all those things play a role when trying to monetize in those emerging markets. In order to bypass those difficulties, we partner with mobile carriers, right? So that's one of the reasons why you will never, or very hardly, you'll hear about Bemobi Apps Club, right? You hear about Vodafone Apps Club, you hear about Vivo Apps Club, or Team Apps Club, or any of our customers' Apps Club or Games Club, but you won't know, you won't hear about our brand, right, Bemobi. And we're present today in about 35 countries around the world, as I said, emerging markets. That includes LATAM, most of the countries, Eastern Europe, South and Southeastern Asia, and also Africa. We're trying to grow in all those regions, so we have a few different teams responsible for making the business grow, right? I would divide our commercial team in three separate groups, let's say. So one of them is my team, right? We are the ones responsible for basically chasing new partners, bringing new content, making sure these partners are satisfied, making payments happen properly, giving good visibility to the content in our stores. Anyway, anything related to the partnership and the content itself, right? And then we have a different team responsible for chasing new carriers in new countries, right? We're penetrating those companies, and we are expanding our potential user base. Whenever we close a deal with a new carrier, all of their mobile subscribers, they become eligible to our service. And then there's a third team responsible for actually acquiring new users. So they are the ones responsible for communicating the service through the channels that we have access to, and bringing new customers to our user base. And we use all kinds of electronic channels And again, because we have the partnerships with the mobile carriers, we have access to their channels too, like IVR, voicemail, or SAT push, SMS, you name it, right? So at the end of the day, I guess that's the magic of our service, right? We have a partnership with a specific type of player, the mobile carriers, that allow us to communicate, subscribe, deliver the service, everything in one channel, meaning the user's mobile phone. And this one point that I was almost forgetting about. We charge the users through their mobile phones too, right? So they don't need to have access to a credit card. They don't have a bank account. They don't need to, I don't know, like money transactions on physical points of sale. Pretty much everyone in this world today has through a mobile phone. They might not have a TV at home, but they will likely have a mobile phone. And in order to use that mobile phone, they will need to top up if they are prepaid users, or they will have a phone bill, right? A mobile phone bill. In both cases, we can charge users and take some money from them to give them access to the service. So again, we bypass and we address each one of those difficulties that I've mentioned before in order to deliver the service and to further monetize the content of these partners, already existing content. So it's 100% incremental revenues for those guys in markets where they usually would have no or very little revenues from. So that's pretty much what we do today, and that's what my team does, right? I'm looking for new content. So if any of you out there has some, please come talk to me.
It's awesome to see that the pattern is the same, regardless if you are mainstream publishing across Steam, Epic Store, Play Store, Xbox, or even Google Play and App Store, or if you are going through local markets, alternative channels across mobile, mostly Android, I suppose. Because I was talking to a friend. He runs he's COO. His name is Thiago. He's COO of Nuven. Nuven's a local marketplace in Latin America that sells PC and console games. And he was actually talking about how important having local partners who understand the language, who understand the player base, and more importantly, who know how to explore the strengths and work around the weaknesses to make sure they actually succeed in that space. So it's at the end of the day, I think business is all the same, and it just what it changes is just the market you operate. But we see pretty much the same pattern across the industry. So you say about incremental revenue, Rodrigo. Can you talk a little bit about average revenues per game in a specific period, or what you guys usually see?
Yeah, sure. Well, so before getting into actual numbers, there's a few things to consider, right? Again, because we are charging users through their mobile phones, we're charging them in local currency. There's a lot of things who come to play when defining revenues for the content provider, right, for our partners. Because basically, if we're in Brazil, we are charging users in Brazilian reais. If we are in some other country, let's say Argentina, we're charging them in Argentinian pesos, and so on, right? Each one of those currencies has its own FX rate compared to dollars, right? And we pay our partners mostly in US dollars. So if a specific country's economy is not doing so well, and the FX rate is affected by it, then our revenues are affected by it, not in local currency, but then the payments we're making. So therefore, there's a lot of variation in those revenues. Having said that, we basically have three ranges, let's say. And a low-performing title would be doing something around $90 to $100 per month. That's about $1,000 to $1,200 a year. An average title would be doing something like $300 to $400. Again, 3.6 to 4.8, $3.5 to $5,000 a year. And the top performing title will be doing something close to $1,000 per month. That's $12,000 a year. Obviously, we have outliers on both sides of this curve. Right? We have titles that are not engaging, titles that for some reason the people just don't feel interested, and they don't play it again. They try it once and that's it. And those guys are not generating. They're not generating much, right? They're not generating any money almost. And we have some titles who are that are extremely famous, extremely well recognized. People are super engaged with it, and these guys are making hundreds of thousands per year with one title, right? So it depends a lot. But if we're sticking with the majority, those would be the main numbers, I would say.
That's pretty much amazing for like an extra money that you didn't know it existed, or especially in those countries, thinking on the developer side. If you're a developer, and if you're a Brazilian developer, for example, and if you are receiving $12,000 per month, that's basically that pays some of the bills at the end. It's certainly a good source of revenue for developers.
Yeah, and it's a very easy way to get into some new markets. Right? I mean, if you want to take your title to markets that and you don't know exactly how to start, for us it's super easy with a click of a button just to make it live in all of the countries where we are present. Right, so to make it international overnight and receive some extra revenues for that. That's it's an easy step for us.
We know that there are games and games, so different basically games that succeed and games that don't. What kind of games do you usually look for, and what's the ideal game that will basically thrive in the apps club? And I'll divide my question into two parts because they are somehow connected. And also, how do you marketing? What are the most efficient marketing ways you have to make sure the players find out about a game?
Yeah, so you have to remind me about the second part, because I'm gonna let me cut this into a few different answers. So first of all, before saying what kind of games we chase, we have some very specific criteria, right? We don't want to be Google Play. We don't want to be App Store. We don't want to have 2 million titles. I don't know how many million titles in our store. We won't be able to curate it properly. We won't be able to give proper visibility to it. And because obviously at the end of the day, each partner would be receiving cents, no one will be happy, right? We want to have a few titles, I would say something about 1,000 titles that are well known, that are recognized, that are well rated, that have good number of installs and downloads. And then we want to be able to properly communicate and to monetize on those titles, right? So this is the first thing. We don't want to receive all kinds of content, low quality contents. We because our users, they're all paying subscribers. Right? We are a subscription-based app store. Our users are paying a subscription in order to use the service. We really need to prove the value of the service in order for them to keep on paying, right? So we don't want to have all kinds of titles. With that out of the way, the kind of titles we look for, again, the specific criteria I mentioned. So number of installs, the rating, it's very important. If it's an editor's choice title, for example, it's important. The position it reached on App Annie ranking, it's important. So all those very specific, very objective criteria. Obviously, we have published titles that were not, for example, on Google Play. They have not been launched, but we have a QA team. We test it, we play it. We try to understand if it's a good fit for us. If we don't have, for example, many titles of that specific genre, that specific type, so that's not going to create internal competition. Assuming all of those boxes are checked, then for sure we can give it a try, right? We can publish it and see how it performs. And then talking about specific types of content, well, basically what happens is we pay our partners based on unique daily usage events. So it's daily active users, right? Unique daily active users. So they basically count the amount of events of every single game on every single store that we have, and then we share the money based on that, right? So basically, the games that perform well are those games that make people keep on coming back, keep on playing day after day after day after day, right? So those games are the ones that perform the best. So if you have a game that it's, for example, a single story, no alternative endings, no things to be discovered during the gameplay, it's just one single straight story. You play it to the end, it's done. Especially if it's not long enough, then this is the kind of game that it's probably not going to generate a lot of money, because people will play, like, I don't know, a few hours maybe, and then they're done with it. Fine, right? You're not going to be generating those usage events that are necessary to generate your money. If it's a more casual game, or if it's a longer game, if it's a game that, I don't know, like many different levels, then yeah, for sure, it's the kind of game that has the potential to generate interesting revenue with us. So I guess that answers the second question. And the last part is you asked me about the kind of featuring we can give to content, right? And that's a very interesting one, because we don't charge anything from our partners to provide that featuring, right? We have a few different tools to do that. So we have, for example, we have push notifications for the users who have our apps installed in their mobile phones. We have a highlights tab. So whenever a user logs into the store, they have two different tabs: the highlights and the categories. Categories basically have as everything that we have, all the content is there, right? The highlights is manually assembled on a weekly basis, and that's where we are going to promote the contents that we want to promote, right? And that's based on the relationship we have with the partners, with the agreements that we have with the partners, but there's no money there. They don't need to pay. We can push whatever content we think is interesting, whatever content we think the users are going to appreciate, using the highlights, using the push notifications. And obviously, we have the acquisition channels. When I mentioned we have 3 teams, one of them is bringing new users. Many times we don't talk about Apps Club, the service. We talk about the content first, and then we talk about the service, right? And then sometimes we can also promote content through those channels. So we impact a lot of people through those channels, and when they come through that channel, usually they came because they liked the content, so they go straight to the content page. So that's another tool we can use to promote content. But we are very again, as I said, we don't want to be people who play. We really want to give good promotion to all of our partners. So we have a team of people who are constantly dedicated to that, organizing and discussing and agreeing on promo plans for each one of our partners. So yeah, we have a few tools to do that.
I guess there are many learning things from what you said, and thank you. That was super deep. I think one of them is the first one, at least that comes to my mind, is, again, we see a pattern from people publishing games in different platforms, and that repeats with what you said about Bemobi. We see that games that will succeed are games that were created based on what the market needs, rather than, oh, I want this game because I like spaceships, or based on the developer's will, rather than what the market actually needs. So we see that it seems to again repeat, and it's actually interesting to remember about you guys. It's We're talking here about, if I was a developer looking for a publisher, and even though I make games on PC, I think there is a lot to learn from this conversation we're having here, because it's basically the same. You just apply it into a different platform. So I think that's certainly a good takeaway from this whole conversation we're having. But I wanted to get more on the developer side as well and ask Lucas. I know so when I worked at Hermit Crab, and now you're doing what I was doing before, and that was pretty much relationship with stores, relationship with publishers, and alternative channels. From a development perspective, can you talk a little bit about how you see alternative channels and how you think game developers can leverage them?
Yeah, definitely. So what you just said, it's basically what I always say to all developers that we work with, and for anyone that actually ask me, and why the hell are you working with those unknown stores? That's basically because this is a huge opportunity that people are not aware of. Because if you think about it, it's a niche that doesn't share the same amount of players that doesn't share players and the public with Apple Store, App Store, and Google Play Store, and it will require way less work from you as a developer, and at the same time, it will continue to provide you some amount of money by the end of the month or by the end of the trimester. So it's a great opportunity to at least start. If you have like a game that it's basically ready, to launch, most of those stores, they need the game to be of a premium version of it, right? So if you are able to just tweak a little bit much of your game to make it premium, or as close as possible to a premium version, you'll be able to take full advantage of those of this side of the market. But going back to the question itself, as a developer, when we are talking to publishers from the telco market or the regular market, for the what we are used to see, I think the approach is almost the same in terms of you have to show what your game is about. You have to show what kind of metrics you already have. But by the end of the day, I think you can at least take advantage in different ways, right? So you can, as for I've seen until now, you can start making something out of your game a little bit earlier if you go through the telco market side, because you'll be sure that by the end of the day, if you manage to get some kind of feature, you get something out of this game, and this something will add up, and it will be some kind of argument or for you to sell your game to another publisher for later on App Store or Google Play Store. So if you manage to get like 1,000 or 10,000 or who knows 100,000 downloads on those telco market, you can later on talk to a publisher that you talked in the past and say, the game that it wasn't that great a few months back or a year ago. Well, right now we managed to get 100,000 downloads across I don't know how many stores and in countries, and you'll be able to grow as a developer and be able to build a better product with this kind of experience. So what you need essentially won't be too much difference from when you're talking to a publisher from App Store and Google Play Store, or a publisher in the telco market. So I think you should always be ready to show the different ways your product, your game can be. So if you think you can make your game both ways, do it. I mean, if you won't take too much time, to organize your workflow to make it possible, just do it, because it's two both valid opportunities, for to explore your own game and to get more revenue out of it. So we right now are working with a lot of other studios. We are taking advantage not only our own games, but from other studios. We're bringing this kind of content, of this kind of revenue for other studios as well, and it's been fantastic. For our studio specifically, it's thanks to those telco markets, to those stores, that this studio is up and running until now. So if you think that it's just a little bit of extra money. I'm not sure if it will be worth it. Well, some studios, such as our own, managed to go on up until now thanks to that. Of course, we managed to get a great deal with some IPs that managed to get our game really big. But some games are, are just well polished enough, and have this kind of content that is just a fit with some of those stores. So as Rodrigo said, sometimes they need some kind of specific game, specific genre, and your game may be the thing that they need the most. So if you have like a strategy game and they're lacking on it, you can always reach out and talk and ask, do you need a strategy game? Do you need a puzzle game or adventure game? And you may be about to get a nice feature that you get, I don't know, maybe thousands and hundreds of thousands of impressions, and that will convert nicely for a game. So yeah, as a developer, I don't see why not try both things. Keep trying the things that we are used to for App Store and Google Play Store, but always keep in mind that the technical market is here to help developers grow in a way, and also be your side business or maybe your main business for the time being. So yeah, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities to take from this side of the market, and well, by the end of the day, is actually a little bit less intense, I think, than the usual KPIs that you need to prove and show all those insanely huge publishers. Yeah, I think it's there's no need to think it's a lesser option.
So I think at the end of the day, also there will be always asks. Either you're working with a publisher who wants to control the game and wants to make the decisions on where the product is going or not, or who wants you to do some implementations. I think on the telco side, that is not different. So there's even though the process is pretty seamless. Like it's very basic, almost no integration from what I've done, or almost basically you have an APK and you're good to go. But there will always be something. And Lucas said something interesting that I wanted to ask Rodrigo. It's about the monetization strategy of the games that do mostly well in those markets, and if they what makes them different from being in from the Google Play or the App Store versions. Because I remember when at Hermit we were publishing our Paris Saint-Germain game through the telco, we had a special version that was just some sort of part of the full game that was somehow adapted to the telco market. So Rodrigo, can you talk a little bit about the monetization strategy and
Yeah, for sure. So I guess different companies might have different strategies. Talking specifically about Bemobi, again, we are a subscription-based club, right? So our value proposition to the end users include titles with external links, all in-app purchases in case of free-to-play games, all in-app purchases being available at no extra cost, so they won't have to pay anything for in order to use that. And obviously, premium games, you won't have to pay anything in order to download them and play them, right? And we usually don't require, as you said, any integrations. We don't require any SDKs, no APIs. So it's a pretty simple process, pretty seamless too. We just received the same version, the same Google Play Android version that the developer has, and we do on our side some small changes, basically in order to protect the content, right? Especially if it's a free to play, or if it's a premium title, and it's a free to play, the in-app purchase is available at no extra cost. Then basically, if people can share it with people who are not users, then there's a lot of value there being leaked to the market, right? So what we do is we apply our own DRM technology on it. We basically wrap the content, and we make sure that people who are not subscribers, they will not be able to use it. And it has other functions as well, as, for example, to count usage events, even if the user is offline at the moment. And then we make the content available in the stores where we think it's suitable, where it fits the audience, either the vertical or the country itself. And then that's pretty much it, right? And then we communicate the game as we mentioned, using the channels that we have available. But the titles themselves, with that exception, meaning in-app purchase available, no ads, no external links, and all those things, they don't have differences for the other versions, right? The versions on Google Play. Right? So I guess we try to give to the end users the most complete and most hassle-free experience we can provide, and we try to do the same for the providers as well, right? Just give me your regular Google Play version. We work on it. If we need anything, we'll let you know. But most of the cases, we can solve ads and everything else on our own. So it tends to be very simple and tends to be very fast too.
I think we have I want to get into a little bit of the side of the business side of publishing later on, but I think before we do that, I think we have an opportunity to actually analyze a pretty successful case here as well. That is Hermit. The three of us have somehow been involved in the same process through different stages. And I know Hermit has been pretty successful with their games and also doing third party and bringing them into telco. So maybe Rodrigo, you want to talk a little bit about how successful that has been, and about the partnership. So what I want to show here is how flexible and how adaptable you guys also are, and how open you are also to local developers, but also more importantly, how can developers succeed? How can national develop? Because I don't know, I've seen many people already saying that, with those saying that, I won't make money with games, and that's not the reality. We know that it's difficult. There's a lot of people making money. So I want to show that this is a reality if you make the right decisions and if you make the right calls. So can you talk a little bit about the relationship and how successful Hermit has been with you guys?
Absolutely, yeah, sure. And Lucas, feel free to compliment me as needed, okay? Well, first of all, let me emphasize what you just said. It's true. Making money with games is not super easy, right? As I said, we don't want to be Google Play. We want to have the best possible content. So we have huge companies working with us. We have companies like Disney, Ubisoft, Square Enix. The giants of the industry. We have many of them. We also have very small studios, sometimes individual developers who have come up with some very interesting titles. People loved it. We want to have it too. So there are no barriers. And maybe also complementing what Lucas was saying before, why shouldn't you try different channels, right? I mean, think of it as a product, because it is at the end of the day, right? It's fun, but it's also a product. You're selling it, and the more places your product is present, the more chances you have to sell it, right? It's additional revenues. There are no downsides for you on having your title on those alternative stores, right? We target different people, we target different countries, different payment methods, different payment schemes. So definitely that should be a way for you to further monetize your content. And then talking specifically about Hermit Crab, we've been partners for I guess a bit more than 2 years now, or about that. I had just joined Bemobi when we started discussing, and well, the first title we started discussing was the PSG title, right? which was super interesting and exciting, because basically we have a lot of famous names on that game, which automatically made us want to have you guys on board, right? And basically for a while that was the first and only title we had, and we kept on pushing it on our stores, promoting it, making sure people would get to know it and play with it. The quality was good, even though it was a new partner. You guys were a new partner. We had never heard of you before. The quality of the content was good, so that's one very important thing, right? At the time we published it, it was not on Google Play, and basically we didn't have a lot of references, but the quality of the content spoke for itself, right? So that's a very important thing. Even if you don't have a name yet, even if you're or even if the content is not, you're not using famous IPs, famous characters, you can still overcome that, right? Just making sure the content you're creating is good quality. And then we started promoting it, and then at some point you guys started bringing additional content, which was also great. So today we have about 10, I would say, contents published with you, and we have not stuck with only one type of content. We're not only doing a specific type of games. We have different types of games. We have content for kids, so that's another interesting thing, right? When you have a variety of types of content, you can also play with that. And see what performs best and what's not performing so well, so that you can focus your energy on what is really working. So besides that, what can I say? That the partnership has truly been great. Another thing is obviously as tips, right? Invest on the relationships that you build. As Lucas said in the beginning, when you screw up on something, you're not burning one relationship. It's a whole network that is going down the drain, right? So, I mean, stay honest to the content you're creating, to the quality of the content you're putting in the market. Invest in the relationships that you have, even if at some point it's not going to bring you exactly what you wanted. If you keep the doors open, then you have another shot, and then another shot, and then another shot. We have refused hundreds of games from partners, and at some point they come up with something that's really interesting and say, yeah, sure, let's, it's not related to the people, right? It's actually related to the content. But if you have a good relationship with the people, then you keep the door open. You're always being heard. You always have another chance to promote what you're trying to do. So I guess those were a few of the qualities and characteristics that Hermit Crab showed from day one, and also the relationship with Mateus was excellent. He was the one who actually started talking to us, right? And he was super extra committed to making it work. So we could see it was not a one-side thing, right? We were not the only ones pushing the content. You were committed to on your side. So it was a true partnership, not just a one-time commercial transaction. So I guess those are the pillars that made this relationship successful. That usually make any commercial relationship successful, right? Trust, commitment, being committed to the content, that the quality of the work that you put in the market. So I guess those are the things that made this work very well for all of us.
Yeah, I think you've said everything up. Lucas, do you have also anything else you want to add?
Well, as you just entered Bemobi as the negotiations was just started, I actually entered Hermit Crab, and all of it had just happened before my time. But for what I've seen, the partnership with Bemobi was always great, and allow us to, as you said, provide different kind of contents and genres of games. And that is, as for me working on this side as a developer and / distributor, it's always good to be able to provide different kind of games. So I'll be I I'm able to be in touch with different kind of developers that thinks differently, that have different kind of interesting ways to to show fun and develop fun for people. So that's always a positive outlook that I have on my side. And as for us as a company, that's perfect. We are able to get revenue from games that we never thought that we'd be able to work with, and be on the lookout, because our new update for our PSG is coming up soon enough. And also our Arsenal game will be probably up and running on Bemobi soon, later this year.
Well, that's awesome. I think I want to get into to see if anyone who's watching us have some questions. But I think that the main takeaways here is just to summarize everything we discussed, and I think it all went pretty good. Was great actually. It doesn't matter the platform you're looking for a publisher. I think it's all about being transparent, promising something you can deliver, and the way you're presenting your game as well. So think that if you're approaching a publisher and if you're looking for publishers, first thing you should do is go and watch Jay's panel, because I haven't seen that one specifically, but I've met him a couple of times and he's great and he has a lot of understanding about publishing. So go and watch that first. And then once you've absorbed everything and you've found out the publishers you want to talk to, I think it's just a thing. I think what developers can do is think that you're selling your game, because you actually are. Think how you're going to add value to that person who is now behind the other screen, because can't do it face to face anymore. And also think how you can make your game, or since the very early days of development, how you can make your game appealing enough that not only players will want to play it, but also you will be able to find business partners that will help you just take it to the next level, because most of the things you're going to be leveraging their experience and sometimes their funding, sometimes just their understanding of the market or their channels, if it's like in Bemobi's case, and also their understanding of how telco works or whatever platform. So I think if you're transparent and if you have a game that is solid enough and it's actually their chances of being profitable, make sure to explore those points, and then to make sure you're properly presenting your game in a way you're adding value to whoever is listening to you, because I think that's going to make all the difference. I wanted to finish this with just a few takeaways on how does a publisher work. I think we've been talking about this pretty much for the last hour. It's not because we talked about telco that it's exclusive for telco. So I think there's a lot to take on here. But also I think that they're going to be your partners, and you need to properly not only create value, but also make sure you can do whatever you're telling them that there will be in the game. I think I'm pretty much. I think we've done everything we wanted to cover today. Rodrigo, is there anything you want to add?
Well, just again, thank you all for the invitation. It was a pleasure being with you here. Again, I guess our contacts will be available, and I would truly love to hear from new game developers, mobile content developers in general, not only games, but that's what moves the world today with games, right? So we'd love to hear from you. Surely open to discuss games. If we can help in any way, even if it's not with our own platform, I'm willing to do so. So just write me, call me on LinkedIn, WhatsApp, whatever. I'm super available and willing to help. So thank you.
What's your LinkedIn so people can find you?
It's it's my name, Rodrigo, Rodrigo, space Lannes, Lannes. So people can look for Bemobi, you'll find me.
Thank you. Lucas, anything you want to add and how people can find you to have a chat?
As again, thank you all, Game Jam Plus organization, and you, Jairo, for conducting the panel and for inviting me. As last word here, don't be afraid of talking about your project to people. Don't think that people will run away with your idea. Talking to publishers will be basically exposing most of your game to them. So be sure to get used to it. And people are here more to help than you think. There's a lot of good, great names out there that are way more accessible than you think, even from big publishers. So don't be afraid to reach out to them or reach out to any of us here on this panel. You can find me at LinkedIn with my full name, Lucas Pessoa de Freitas. My Twitter handle is @LucasPessoaF. And my email is lucas.pessoa@hermitcrabstudio.com. I'm not sure if that will be written anywhere else here on the YouTube channel, or I don't know, but you can find me by my name anywhere.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, I think just a quick question to actually the organization. Can we have questions, or or not? I don't think we're technically allowed.
Yeah, I think reading here, I don't think we have questions.
Okay. So it seems we're just about to finish up. We've just do 1 hour, so that was good. Thanks everybody. If you want to find me, my LinkedIn is Jairo Lopes, JairoLopes. My Twitter is JAAIROLOPES. And I'm pretty much available if you guys want to talk about publishing, how to find a publisher, or I've been giving a few talks on pitching and partnering up with publishers. So stay tuned. If you want to hear about if you are a Portuguese speaker, and if you want to hear about if you want to listen to our podcast, Abrindo o Jogo, in any podcast feed, you can find us, or in the Twitter, Abrindo Jogo Cast. Thank you very much. Thanks to the Game Jam Plus organization for the space. I think the conversation was great. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Fala galerinha, eu sou o Cristiano Torreão, dublador do Lupus de Grand Chase, do Jarvan IV de League of Legends, do nosso queridíssimo Junkrat de Overwatch e do Azaf de Uncharted Lost Legacy, entre outros personagens. Galerinha, eu tô aqui para convidar vocês para um evento especialíssimo, vocês não podem perder. É o Esquenta Gamejam+2020. É isso aí, galera. E no dia 8 de outubro eu vou estar lá, num painel especialíssimo, junto com o Marcelo Figueiredo, CEO da Radioativa Game Sound. E nós vamos falar do quê? Nós vamos falar sobre trilha sonora original e voz original para jogos. É isso aí, galerinha. A gente vai falar sobre o processo de construção das trilhas e do processo, dos conceitos para a escolha das vozes dos personagens dos games, tanto em inglês quanto em português. Então, é um painel imperdível, feito para você que é super curioso em conhecer como é feita a dublagem e como é feita a trilha sonora para jogos. Dia 8 de outubro, a partir das 18h30, horário de Brasília, eu e Marcelo Figueiredo, junto com vocês na Game Jam Plus 2020. Espero vocês lá.